2, 3, 4, 5, 6.
Well, that was fun. The hardest thing about that to me was keeping our timing in sync because
Yeah.
that was so slow.
So slow. I like doing that. It's fun.
It's really good exercise. If you have a friend, always recommended to just jam with them and just play something. I'll try to
Oh, yeah.
come up with it. We just went over that once right before.
Yeah.
Trying to play.
On the spot. Nice.
So bending and vibrato today, and we haven't done this yet in LS. I don't usually teach licks because I don't know, I just never get around to it. But we're gonna go over some basic technique for bending and vibrato today, and then I'm gonna teach you 3 licks that are cover licks, like famous licks, because I think they're absolutely essential if you want to be a rock guitar player. And they're classic rock licks that if you can play the bends in these things, you're gonna be on it. You can play pretty much any rock bend lick.
Yeah.
And then Andrew's gonna have some more like fundamental meat and potato licks that he's gonna go through. And we have 8 licks for you total today.
Yeah, 8 licks. That's a lot.
It is.
Yeah, so if you guys want those licks, you have to download the PDF, which is below the video player. So that is for in the members area. You can go click on downloads. You can download the PDF. There's also a jam track in there that we're going to jam on a little bit later. And then for those of you guys who are watching on YouTube, to download the resources, you just have to click on the link below the video player. Again, that'll take you over to guitarlessons.com/live, and you'll see the live event there, and you can download the resources there as well.
Sweet.
Yeah.
Let's get into just some basic technique about bending and vibrato. Oops. I'm just going to take some of this delay off so I don't wash you guys out.
Good idea.
There's lots of different ways to think about bending, but I have some general guidelines that are going to help you if you're just getting into bending, be able to come up with the strength and technique you need to actually bend the strings. Let's see. For most of these licks, believe it or not, we're going to be using the straight up minor pentatonic scale, the 6/1 shape. It's not popular for no good reason. It's great for rock.
Yeah.
But the first tip I have for you as far as bending goes is to use as many fingers as possible when you're bending. I've seen people try to bend up with their pinky like this on a string. That's tough.
Ooh. It hurts to watch.
And it does hurt. It hurts to do. No, but use as many of your fingers as you can when you're bending. There's no reason to make that little guy or your third finger or your second finger play or try to bend those strings on its own. Use all the fingers you have behind those strings. Or if you're using your third finger, if you're using your second finger, use that first one to help you out.
Yep.
Right? So that's the first basic technique tip I have for you for bending and vibrato, by the way. The reason we're talking about both of these at one time is because one kind of follows the other. And if you work on both of them, it can be a really key expressive tool that you can use to start helping yourself develop your own unique sound. So the second tip I have is to Eric Clapton it, and that's what I call it. Put your thumb over the neck to get some leverage. That's the biggest thing, man,
Such a
to
good
me.
tip.
If I try not, I can do it.
Yeah. You're using different muscles. You can see. When you do that, it's much less, your hand's not straining as much. When you're back here, you're pinching.
Oh, 100%.
Yeah.
I'm like, I don't feel like I'm playing classical guitar to do this. It's for a good reason, but so I can't even, my thumb automatically came over, so it's doable, but this is so much easier. I can sit back. This I have to,
Yeah.
So those are my 2 tips for getting into bending and the vibrato for that matter. At least kind of the rock vibrato, the non-classical vibrato.
Right. Right.
And a lot of times I'll have my thumb over the fretboard, or I'll have it completely detached and just use my entire arm, kind of up and down like that. I know Eric Johnson does that a lot.
Yeah.
And he's where I picked that up from. I really like his vibratos.
Yeah. I've seen a lot of other players who use that as well. It changes the sound a lot.
It does. Yeah, I think it gives you a different kind of control over it, I think.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. Okay. Very cool. I don't know if you plan on talking about this, but I wanted to make sure I didn't forget because it just came up in my head. String gauge matters more than just about anything else when it comes to bending. And if you want to play while you like,
There's a funny story behind that. Well, string gauge and what scale length. Andrew and I both brought our shortest scale length guitars we own today because it's easy to bend on.
It's because I have 11s on all my guitars, even the ones with different scale lengths. And typically the way you think about it is there's like the Gibson scale length and the Fender scale length. If I remember correctly, it's 24 3/4 for Gibson and 25 and a half for Fender. And then I know PRS is in the middle somewhere.
Yeah.
And the shorter scale length, like based on the gauge of strings, because obviously heavier strings, more tension, the shorter the scale length, the easier the string's gonna be to move. And I was saying, I was going over some of this stuff and I was like, man, if I bring one of my like longer scale guitars today, I'm gonna be hurting. And so it was funny that we both brought in our short scale guitars.
Yeah, I've been playing a lot of classical lately. So there's no bending in classical, right? So I was like, ooh.
Yep. Yeah.
My fingers are hacked right now.
It's a muscle. I mean, it's more than one muscle, but that you do have to kind of keep conditioned.
You have to maintain it. It's like bar chords.
You do. It's the same way. And so for those of you guys maybe that are having some trouble with bending a little bit, it's okay to go down a string gauge. And you'll kind of find a happy medium. Like I started off on 9s like everybody else, and it was like, oh, at first it was hard to get the muscles and stuff under control, and then I ended up going to 10s. And then after a while I noticed, oh, I overbend a lot. And when I pick really hard, my strings wow and do these things, and it's like, so I'm gonna try going up to 11s. And I ended up at 12s at one point when I was playing a lot. Now I'm back down to 11s, and I'm pretty comfy.
Back down to 11s.
Yeah. But just keep in mind, you can go, the lighter the string gauge and the shorter scale guitars, if you have like a Strat that's a long scale guitar, go down to 9s if you're with 10s, and it'll make the bending stuff a lot easier.
These feel like 9s, they're 10s on this Gretsch, and this is a shorter scale.
Right. So. Yeah, that makes sense. Cool. That makes sense.
I had a thought, and it is gone.
Escaped ya?
Any technique tips for you, Andrew? As far as
technique tips?
Yeah.
I would say, and this isn't a technique tip, don't feel like you need to copy. There's no one way to do vibrato, and there's no one way to bend even. And I think that it's okay to come up with your own voice. And I really appreciate when people kind of learn their bending. They learn bending, they learn vibrato, they learn the technique from a teacher or from wherever or just from playing, and then they appropriate it into their own style. And I think keep that in mind when you're like looking at how Nate does his bending and vibrato and how I do mine. They're gonna be quite different probably. And it's okay to have something that's different from us too, because that's kind of what gives you a unique voice.
Yeah, especially vibrato. I think that's one of the. There's a lot of guitar players that I can hear one note by them and guess that, hey, that's this person.
Yeah, no, that's so right.
I guess we'll reiterate and talk more about tips as far as technique for vibrato and bending in particular for this lesson as we go through these licks. And they're all in the PDF for you. We have 8 of them, like I said. So I want to get started with this first one, but I need some delay on because it's a Pink Floyd lick.
Oh,
it's the first lick. Oh, you hear that?
Ooh.
Oh, hold on.
I don't know if that's the right effect, Nate.
That is incorrect. Here, this is correct. It's the first. That was cool though. I like that.
I was gonna say that was very cool.
It's the first lick from the solo on Pink Floyd's song "Brick in the Wall," right?
Yeah.
Another brick in the wall.
Yeah.
So let me play it for you slowly. That part isn't in there, but it should be. But this is, I would argue that this is like the quintessential classic rock, blues rock lick that you need to know if you're playing guitar. Because if you can do this, you're going to be able to work it into a lot of different situations, and you're going to develop the skills that you need to do a lot of bending. And it's in D minor, or where we would play D minor pentatonic. Let me turn a little bit of this gain off so you can hear that. So right here, D note. This is the scale we're using. Wow, I bent that way up. There you go. So that's the scale we're using, right? And this lick starts off right there. So you're going to play 13, 10, pinky, index finger on the B string. And then play 12 on the G string. Then back to 10 with your first finger on the B string. So, and here comes the first bend. It's a whole step bend on the 12th fret of the G string, and then you have a downstroke on the B string, 10th fret, downstroke on the high E string, 10th fret, and then a full step bend right here on the 13th fret of the B string. And it's a little bit tricky as far as the picking goes. Let me play it once more real slow and we'll talk about the picking. And I got that vibrato on the end of it, so that's another aspect of this lick that's really good for your playing if you can play that. But I end up playing pick down, pull off, up, down. So that's the first little bit. And then come back to the G string, and then you have that bend with an up, then you have two downstrokes on the B and high E strings. So it's a little bit weird, so you're going to want to slow that down. Because you end up at the beginning, it's like playing kind of in between the strings, down, up, down, up. So it is a little bit awkward. But that lick, to me, is packed full of valuable stuff and skills to learn on the guitar. And I'm ashamed to admit it, yesterday is the first time I actually learned it. And,
You've probably used pieces of that lick
I use this all the time.
a million times. Yeah.
All the time.
Yeah.
So it's Stevie Ray Vaughan, a bunch of people, right?
Yeah.
So that's my first lick.
Okay, I'll go to my first. Now, my licks are really easy. Nate was being nice and saying they're meat and potatoes, but I was going through, when I was learning how to play guitar, I didn't learn any licks from players, and it probably wasn't a good thing that I didn't do that, but I ended up kind of just, I have these little 3-note, I think all of them are 3 notes actually, 3 or 4 notes that you can just incorporate as a transition or as a way to start something or part of a bigger lick. So these aren't necessarily, they don't have to be standalone licks.
They're great places to start though.
They are, yeah. They're pretty easy. The main thing with them I've found is the timing is what's gonna make them sound good. So if you nail the timing, and it can be done a bunch of different ways, it's probably gonna sound good. So the first one is basically, it's that blues lead-in that everybody plays. So quite often when you hear a blues, so let me just kind of give you an example. The note you'll come in on, the note that most blues guys come in on is this one. That's kind of like you're stepping. It's kind of like the perfect, like, I'm stepping my foot into the water, and then you go from there. So another way to hit that note, we're in the key of D minor, or D blues, is that one, right? When you bend up there, so that's on the 12th fret of the G string, you bend up a whole step. So what I like to do and how I like to use this one is you bend up a full step and then you go. So it's. But in full context, if you're doing it properly, it was. just like that. So it's just 3 notes. And that's it. And you can add vibrato or you can not add vibrato. And that's something that I love about these licks is you can definitely, again, appropriate them into anything you want. You can easily incorporate that into a big long lick, or that's just a way to maybe start a lick and then carry on from there or something like that. So that's my first one.
Okay, let me backtrack a little bit here because I forgot to talk about something in this lick. Just vibrato in general.
Yep.
So if I have...
Oh, yeah.
All I'm doing right there, just if you don't know what vibrato is, if we haven't done it before on guitar, bending that note up, letting it up back down a little, and then back up to where it was, let it back down a little, and back up to where it was.
Yeah.
And I'm choosing the rate, how fast I do it, and how wide I do it, or how much I let it back down. I'm choosing those 2 things to express myself in the lick for a sound that I like. And Andrew's is going to be different, but he's still kind of either consciously or subconsciously thinking about how fast he's doing it and how wide he's doing it. And it's going to sound different. And that's one thing you're going to want to work on and experiment with to kind of help yourself develop your own sound. So like talk about your vibrato on the end of that lick. That
So yeah, so what I was doing, let me just do it again so I do it properly. I do this thing where I shake actually in my fingers. So it kind of looks like this, if you can, like that. Which it's a little bit maybe more unorthodox. It's not coming from the wrist or from the elbow like some other people do. But I find it's a little bit erratic and kind of has a lot of emotion in it. Not that the others don't, but it just has this special thing that I kind of like. So when it's in the full lick, and it's inconsistent, and I like that it kind of just jumbles around all over the place a little bit, and all I'm doing is I'm just shaking my fingers like that.
I tend to do that with my index finger because I don't have the other fingers to help a little bit. So I never thought about that. So.
Yeah, I do that with my index finger too, actually. That's funny.
Next lick, this is a little bit of a tricky one if you're new to bending because you're going to be bending a lot and you're going to be using first finger, third finger, second finger, and third finger. And let me play it for you. If you don't know who that is, you need to go to iTunes right now and buy The Best of Steve Ray Vaughan. That is one of my favorite bending licks. It's so emotional. It's like he's playing Eastern music, hitting all the notes in between the semitones in Western music. Right?
I felt that in my gut. Like, like you're not quite there.
And it's just raw, man.
I love it.
I've never played that until last night. I was figuring out how to tab it out for you guys, and he plays it. He's playing an F sharp blues.
Okay.
But his guitar is down-tuned 1/2 step.
Yeah.
So it looks like he's playing a G blues.
Okay.
Standard blues scale shape, right?
Yeah.
Only he's playing, for this particular lick, he's playing up to the next shape. So if you have an F sharp here, it looks just like what most people think of a major pentatonic scale.
Okay, that's what I was going to mention.
But it starts off 2 8th notes, or 16th notes, sorry there. And then he moves over to the third of the chord, or the lower third of an F sharp, so it would be F A. He hits that note, bends up like a 1/4 step, hits it again, bends up a little more, maybe like a 1/2 step or 3/4 step. So you have 2 notes on there bent up. You get progressive each time, a little bit more. Then the next fret, you have 3 bends, and you're going to do the same thing. So the first one, a little bit more, a little bit more. And then you're going to go to the 7th fret and do the same thing only 6 times. And each time you do it a little bit more. The last 2 or 3 are around the same pitch. 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. And then finish off with a big whole step bend. And then go back to the third of the chord, that A. Then you end up on the F sharp.
Feels so good when it comes home, hey?
Yeah,
Resolves.
Exactly. But the hardest thing for this lick for me was, you probably can't see this. Can you see this on this camera? My index finger, last night, I looked down and it was just shredded. Because I haven't been bending that much lately. It's pretty funny. But the hardest part to me is bending with your first finger. Then second. And then when you get to that top note, give it some vibrato, and my thumb is all the way over the neck, right? I just leveraging, using every ounce of leverage I can get right now. And if you hit another note, who freaking cares?
I love that. Oh yeah.
That's Stevie Ray Vaughan.
Oh yeah.
That lick is really important to me just for learning how to express yourself on guitar. So that's what I use it.
Oh, that's awesome. And that's so true. Like, if you hit the other strings, it really doesn't matter in that lick.
I wanted to sound pissed off. It's fine.
Yeah. Oh, love it. Very cool. So my next lick, this is a little trick that I like to do, and I can't think of somebody who uses it off the top of my head, but what it is when you bend and you stop the bend. So the idea would be, it's like this sound. I love that sound.
Reminded me of Paul Gilbert.
Okay, does Paul Gilbert do that? Okay.
There's one Paul Gilbert song at the beginning, but yeah.
So this little lick is very simple. All it is, and again, we're in D minor or D blues, but we're going to start with our ring finger, the third finger, on the 10th fret there, and we're gonna slide it. Like that. And then this finger gets put right into position, right there. And then we're just gonna, we're gonna cut it off. That's the important part. And there's a couple ways that you can do it. So you can use your hand to stop the string from ringing out, and this is on the G string, or you can do what I did, and what I'm doing is, even while bent, I'm just lifting the pressure off enough so it defrets. So it'll go like that. So that at the same time, while I'm muting it with this hand, that kind of a sound. And all it is, the important part, now you can do this like this, but you do lose a little bit of like the fluidity of the lick, because especially if maybe you're playing in a rock context, it's gonna kind of, right? It's quite a quick little thing. And again, this is one that you can just throw into anything, but if you look at the PDF and the tab for it, you can see that there's a rest at the end of the lick, and that's just to emphasize, I didn't have to put that in there, but it's just to emphasize the fact that you're gonna bend, and it doesn't even have to be the full whole step. Like, you can hear that when I'm doing it. It's not quite, or it's not always getting there, and that's okay. It can even be just a half step.
Sounds very conversational.
Oh, interesting. I haven't thought of it that way. But yeah, that's the idea. So it's just bend and then cut it off with this hand and this hand at the same time to get that super quick disappearing. And if you have a little bit of reverb on your guitar, whoo, sounds nice. Ooh. Sounds nice. Okay.
Things are going to get a little bit more tricky here. This is kind of it's a good country lick that presents a tricky thing about bending, and that's holding one note still while bending another one. So you want to keep this note right here. We're going to be in the key of C major, but we're going to be using the major pentatonic scale that everybody thinks of as the minor pentatonic scale shape, right? Mm-hmm. But we're going to be emphasizing the C's right here, the relative major of A minor. So think A minor pentatonic if you want. Just think about emphasizing these C's. There's the A. Okay, so what you want to do is bar the top two strings on the 8th fret. Okay? And those notes you have to keep still. And this is tough. It requires a lot of concentration and work at first, but once you kind of develop the skill, it gets a lot easier. So now you're going to take your third finger on the 7th fret of the G string. And I think those are the only 3 strings in this lick. I'm pretty sure it is. Okay, so what I did there is I just took that note I'm playing with my 3rd finger on the 7th fret on the G string, the D note, and I bent it up one whole step to the 3rd of the chord, the E. And I took both my 1st and 2nd fingers there to come help. If I didn't do that, that's super hard. So if I have all 3 fingers helping, so that's basically what we're doing. First, and this brings me to another point because I just had a crappy bend. Always double check the pitch of your bends when you're first starting out, or just if you haven't bent in a long time, you're probably gonna need to brush it up. So this is the note I'm shooting for, one whole step higher. So that's the first part of the lick. And then I'm reaching up and grabbing the high E string with my 3rd finger. Here, you can use the pick too if you want. And then I play the G string again. I'll leave it bent up. Then the B string with my middle finger. Keep that G string bent up, come play it again. Let it down, and then play the C back here with your index finger. It's tricky, man, but this is a really valuable skill to have, especially if you like blues, rock, or particularly country music. And this is kind of a really good standard country lead lick.
And I was gonna mention, that's not technically a guitar lick. That's a pedal
It's pedal
steel
steel.
lick.
Yeah.
I love that.
Yeah.
Country stuff like that is so cool. There's a few of those little like bends like that, like that one you did there, that are really reminiscent of pedal steel, and they've been reproduced on guitar. It's cool. There's a few of them you can learn. I know.
Yeah, that's classic. Yeah.
Double stops.
What I was gonna say is Andrew's guitar is better for that kind of stuff than mine is. I have a tremolo on mine, so when I bend one note, if I'm holding another one down, it'll go out of tune a little bit. So.
It's one of the
little
reasons
wonky.
too why tellies are such a country. Like not only are they bright there, but it's just string right through the body.
Yeah, exactly. But I wasn't about to play my telly today. My hands are out of shape, man. But it's good. It's turned out
Put
well.
sevens on it.
Yeah, it's true. It could.
Okay. You didn't have more to say about that
I
country
don't
lick?
think so. We'll see
Yeah.
if I forget anything.
Okay, and for my last lick, this is my last one. This one is a little bit of a different one as far as what you're doing melodically, because you're playing a note that isn't quite where it's supposed to be. And I just want to make sure that's the lick. So normally if you were playing, now this does work, in blues it's perfect, because when you're playing in a D blues and you play, so turn up a little bit. That note is perfectly okay. But if you're playing in the key of D minor, that note can sound a little weird, because technically you'd be... That note sounds a little out, right? But if you do the bend quick enough, so if you just play like a D minor chord, you can make it work.
Yeah.
It'll depend on the chord you're playing over, if it works. If you do that bend quick, and all it is, it's a little half step bend, so it's just up to that, so.
Yeah.
And that's all the lick is. So again, if you play the D minor, and it actually works over a D major too. Works over both.
Sweet. Awesome.
Let me just make sure that I'm, oh yeah, there's a little spot I want to make sure you get, which is the pull off is very important. Okay. So what I'm doing is I'm bending. And that's
a good Dorian lick too.
And that's what it is. Yeah. And that's every time we play in Dorian, because I don't know how to play in modes, I just add that note and sometimes just bend it around. And it works. Yeah. And if you really want to add flavor, you got to go.
Get the BB King in there?
King note, yeah.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Okay. Go for it.
Okay, this next lick takes the idea that we looked at in the last lick as far as holding one note down and bending another note to the next level. It's another country lick just because it pedal steel licks, right? This one takes a lot of control, man. I suck at it sometimes. So, it's a good ending lick for a country tune. So here's the idea. So if you have this E major chord shape, that's kind of our home base. So we're going to be thinking the key of C major, playing over C chord. And so we're going to hold this C note down on the 10th fret of the D string with our pinky. And then the third of the chord, like in this little bar chord shape, the third of the chord is right there on the 9th fret of the G string with your pinky. So you're just playing C and E. And what you're going to do is you're going to make a suspended 4 chord out of this. So you're bending the third up to the 4th, back down, and then you're going to come sus to it, make the 2 of here, so that's a D, and then bend that 2 back up to the 3rd. And you have to be really careful to keep that pinky planted and not move it at all. It's really hard on this guitar because of the tremolo. You got to make some adjustments and things like that. But you have to be careful to keep that pinky. And then that's the second thing about this lick is I have no other fingers to help me bend this down
Yeah.
with my index finger. So it does take, you have to really get some control over that and work on it. But that's a great ending. Whoa, let me try that again.
Yeah. I like that.
I'm not really a country player, but I've learned some things over the years that'll make you sound like country. That's one of them. Yeah.
Yeah. That's a cool. I don't think I could play that one.
It's rough.
Yeah. I don't think I could.
Like on 11s, I probably couldn't either.
Yeah. I was just trying to bend what you're. I was like.
Yeah, and if you get that lick below like seventh fret, it gets really tough.
Yeah.
I would probably switch it to maybe even try the 5th and 4th string. If you have a different key you need it to put it in, I would try that.
Yeah.
Cool.
Yeah, that makes sense. Okay, and then you have one more?
I do. I'm gonna need to tune for this because this one is extremely challenging on this guitar because I can barely reach the notes. So we'll see if I crash it or
I'm
not.
glad you chose these licks. Make it tough on yourself. It's good.
This has been one of my favorite licks and favorite bending licks or favorite like blues licks in any solo ever for a long time, but I've never learned it. Just 'cause
Really?
I never had a reason to. But
Yeah.
And that wasn't perfect, but it was good enough. It was the solo for the last solo for the Cream song, Eric Clapton tune, Crossroads. I forget if it's the live version or if they're using live, but it's the one that's on the radio all the time, the one you hear the most.
Yeah.
Check it out. That is one of the most violent licks I've ever heard in my life. And there's a lot of bending. And on this guitar, it's really tough to get to it because my hand on the back of the guitar is like this just to reach it. It's a lot easier on a Strat or, I think he's playing a 335 on that. But it's in the key of A minor or A blues.
Yep.
Crossroads, right? Robert Johnson?
Now, are you in an A minor shape
I am.
up the octave?
Yeah, up the octave.
Yeah.
So this. And my thumb is just
like,
But it's worth it. I was going to show it to you guys one whole step down, but I was like, screw that.
Yeah, you got to do it in the right key.
So what you're going to do is hold down the 5th of the chord with your index finger right here on this E. And then what is that? 17, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17. Yeah. 3rd finger, 19th fret. And you have to hold both of those notes down the entire time, but you also have to hold bar with your 1st finger, the 17th fret of the high E string, the entire time. What you're going to do is play the G and B strings together and then bend this note up a whole step. And so you're essentially bending this note up to where it matches this one. So it's going to create a lot of dissonance because when you're doing this fast and this violent, it's not always going to be exactly on, so you're going to get some of that wave, which is perfect for this. And I have it tabbed out to where as soon as you play that, you're just going to play 4 notes on the high E and B strings. But you're going to leave this note you're bending up with your 3rd finger bent and ringing out, so to get as much dissonance as you can.
Yeah.
But one thing he's doing on the recording, it sounds like he's alternating between that and playing this. He doesn't hit everyone right, like alternating between the B and high E strings. And then one big bend up here on, let's see, what is that? The 18th fret with your pinky, just bending up to the root.
Well, he probably improvised that solo, and it was just like, that was awesome. I can't repeat it. It is what it is.
100%. And if you go listen to it, you do that 4 times, and none of the 4 are the same.
Yeah, I love that.
It's really cool. That's one of my favorite licks of all time. And thanks to you guys, I got to learn it this week.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Awesome. Okay, so we're going to jump into some questions. There's already some questions in there. If you guys do have questions, those of you guys who are members, below the video player, questions tab, type her in, send it off, and we will answer it. We got some time to talk about it. While you guys are sending in your questions, there's one little thing that I wanted to mention, and we kind of touched on it a little bit, but it's just to do with vibrato and the importance of choosing vibrato to suit the lick or song that you're playing sometimes. I'm in a process right now with my band where we're getting back in and writing, and this is just something I was consciously thinking about. I was kind of coming up with some licks for a part, and I noticed I was playing these vibrato things on all these notes, and I was just like trying to add soul to it, and then I decided, oh, what would it sound like if I didn't do vibrato? And it was a lot better. It was a lot better when I didn't add any vibrato, and I was listening to it after I'd recorded it. And all I'm saying is like, it's good to consciously be thinking about when you're gonna add vibrato, and sometimes, even on a bend, sometimes it's okay to not have vibrato, even if and then have vibrato on some notes and not others. And just it's okay to be creative and picky about that. Anyways, I just wanted to mention that.
Okay, while you pull up the questions, I'm going to do another tip.
Okay, go
You
for
can
it.
vibrato chords. I mean, I really didn't. Whole chords, right?
Yeah.
I think my volume, there you go. And it's almost like having a built-in pedal, like a vibrato pedal or something. Like I could use my Bixby, but this is a little more subtle. Pretty cool. I use it in church gigs all the time.
Yeah,
So.
that's very cool. If you're really crazy, you can do vibrato with scalloped frets. Like Ingve.
Well,
It just does that.
that just sounds well, I can't say that. It's subjective.
It is, exactly. Okay, moving on. First
just sounds
question here from Gene Allard. Hello, I will not be able to attend today, but I really need some help with double stop bends. Any pointers?
It depends which kind you're talking about. I'll go over both, and maybe Andrew, you have some tips too. Double stop bends. All that means is a double stop is when you're playing two notes at a time instead of just one. You could be playing, bending both of those notes. So if I have like an A minor pentatonic, right? A really common bend on that one is to take, even though this note right here isn't in the scale. I would just spend some time really building up the strength and make sure to use all the fingers behind too to pull down. Because that I can even do that with just the third finger, right?
Right.
So that one, no problem. So as far as notes that you're bending both of them, or like, that's just kind of a nasty bend too.
Yeah.
That's fine. Just spend some time building the strength. But like the other ones that we talked about, that example, that first country bend I went over. Rolling Stones. Right?
Yes.
You just have to put in some focus time teaching your hands, just like when you're making your open chords, teaching your hands to keep that pinky still.
Yeah.
While training your other finger to do a bend on whatever it is, right?
Yeah. A really common, like I know, rock bend is this one.
Yeah.
And what I would suggest doing is just sit there with the one shape. Sit there with the one shape and just practice trying to match that pitch. And you don't want it to be perfect. If it's perfect, it's gonna not sound like a human being playing it, right? But and just sit there on the one lick and just get your hand used to that pointer finger with that lick or that little kind of two-note double stop there. And then work on using both those fingers to bend up the other note. And really, you can see my thumb super far over when I do that, right? And most of the pressure is actually on my thumb. I'm feeling it right there. And the same thing goes with, I know these licks are very common. Those ones, and it's the same thing. Have that thumb way over and really just focus on, you can see 3 fingers there, all helping push that, and this one doesn't move at all. And I would just say, just work on getting that little bit of muscle memory down to start. That would be my suggestion.
Yeah, it's going to be frustrating at first. When I first learned this, I was like, this is freaking impossible. How did he do this? I think I was, again, watching Eric Johnson video. He was showing some
That's a good
pedal
one to
steel
start
licks.
with.
So, yeah, it just takes a while. You just got to be consistent with it.
Next question from Dave Will, 1950. What is the difference in bending on acoustic versus the electric? I play acoustic and I'm a new player, so the bending seems quite difficult. Yeah.
It's a lot more difficult. Like, I have to be a really good guitar shape, and I've been playing a lot of acoustic to do a lot of bends. Like Monty Montgomery, who always plays acoustic, and he bends more than I do on electric, right? But acoustics generally come with heavier gauge strings, like 12s, and it's just going to be harder.
Light.
Yeah, because they're lights, right? But going down, if I put 12s on this guitar, it'd be just as hard to bend as an acoustic would. So if you're wanting to get into bending, maybe try either going down to 11s or custom lights. I think those are in between 11s and 12s, or in between 10s and 11s. Or go buy an electric. Go get a used electric for cheap if you want to get into it.
Yeah, I would agree, because the main issue is the string gauge being heavier, and it's a long scale length. I think the average is 25 and a half on acoustics. I'm pretty sure. I think I was looking at that today, actually. I'm pretty sure it's 25 and a half. And so it's like playing 12s on a Stratocaster or something, which is pretty hard, especially because I know that the nut width on those guitars is a little bit wider, so it's harder to get your hand all the way around, so it does require more strength. I remember John Mayer once saying that one thing that bugged him more than anything else was people trying to bend on acoustic guitar. And I was like, you know what? I completely disagree with you.
So do I.
There's some guys that kill it. John Mayer never bends really on acoustic guitar, but there's some guys that kill it on acoustic.
He's a big bender, though, in general.
Yeah, he is on electric. But I would say either work like hell to work on your strength.
You have to play it all the time.
Yeah,
all the time.
or go down in string gauge. Yeah. Or just do a lot of half-step bends.
Yeah,
right?
That's true.
There's lots of those.
Up from the 3 to the 4, that's one of my favorites.
Yep.
So.
Yeah, brilliant. Okay, next question from Matthew Samick. What are some great bends as far as the intervals? Like, I've been doing a lot of flat 7 to the root, or 4 to the flat 5 or 5, and I feel like I'm stuck in a rut.
One thing that you can do that's very helpful to kind of get you out of that is just take one scale and bend up to the next note in the scale. What that's going to do is going to give you pretty much every option available to you, at least from note to note from adjacent notes, right? So I'm not about to try. Flat 5. So that's the blues scale bent up every note from one to the next. You can do the same thing with the major scale, which is a little bit easier because there are no like minor thirds in there or anything like that. So and that's going to work on your endurance and your strength. It's going to work on your pitch, and it's going to start getting you familiar with notes to bend up to. I like to bend up from, like, let's say I'm in the key of E, from the 2 to the 3.
Okay.
That's more of a major sound, right? Or from the, like I just said, from the 3 to the 4. All right. Or if I'm playing a blues, like an E blues, flat 3 up to the 3, or minor third up to the major third. So things like that. That's the lowered 7th, flat 7 up to the root. So there's a lot of things you can work on. Those are a couple of my favorite ones.
Another thing you can do, as I keep putting down my guitar and picking it back up, is you could totally practice bending. Like, basically what you explained is, like, you can bend any note to any of the next note in the key, really. But bending those low strings inside of something, so if I'm playing... Right? Were you about to jump in on that?
Nope.
Okay.
I was rocking off the Vine pedal, I ain't gonna lie.
And so you can work on getting those kind of little bends, and what I find is it almost gives you a little bit of a slide guitar feel, where you lose the frets, like it being rigid between notes. You can kind of start bending that and then going up to the next note, and it almost is like a smooth climb up. Something you could just play around with. That's what I like to do. So yeah, those lower strings, the stuff on the E and A, and even on the D string in maybe a regular minor pentatonic shape is a great place to start.
If you want to make your stuff sound jazzy, go from the flat 5 to the 5.
It's very jazzy.
So, and you can off the slide, you can bend it.
Yeah, that's very jazzy. I like that. Can I put this down again?
This is guitar calisthenics with Andrew.
It's the most workout I've got in like a couple years, to be honest. Okay. And then a follow-up question from Matthew Samick as well. Any tips on getting a good pitch on pre-bent notes? As in, you bend first, then pick and let it down. I'm about 50% on it now.
Get really familiar with your guitar. One thing that screws me up is if I'm hopping back and forth between guitars a lot and I go into something like that. I played this one all night last night and I've been playing it a lot lately, so it's pretty good. It's pretty dialed in. Just really pay attention to how much on that particular guitar it takes to reach, a whole step bend, half step bend. Yeah. And the more you do that, the more you're conscious of it, the more you'll just absorb it and you'll be good to go.
Yeah, I would just echo the point on knowing your guitar, because that was the same thing. I picked up this guitar after not using it in a while, and I noticed my bends just a little off. With a guitar I've been playing maybe every day for a few weeks, you can bend and then play the note, and then play the note up, and they're exactly the same, and get used to that muscle memory. Have you ever done that exercise? Do you know which one I'm talking about?
I don't know which one. I don't know, Andrew.
I'll do it without. Yeah, what are you doing here? I'll do it without plugging it in. But what it is so this note here.
Oh yeah.
And try and match.
It'll
them
let
all
you
over
know,
the
and you'll be
fretboard.
able to autocorrect.
Oh yeah.
Dang autocorrect.
Dang autocorrect. Okay,
funny.
we got a few more questions in here. So the next one from Paul59. Hey, Nate and Andrew, hello. I noticed some players, when performing vibrato movement, they shake their arm at the same time. Is this a way of enhancing the sound?
It's just a different way of doing it, man. To me, instead of I guess the basic difference that I see is difference between like doing it with my wrist, that's how I do it, or letting my thumb kind of off the back of the neck and having my whole arm do it.
Yeah.
Now, if I have a pre-bend, I can't use my arm as much. I use my wrist.
Right.
But if it's just a regular note, then I use my arm. It's up to you. I would experiment with both and find out which one works best for you. I do all three ways. I use fingers, wrist, and arm, depending on what sound I want, or where the note is on the fretboard, or which fingers I'm using. It's just good to be experiment with all of them and find out what you like for yourself.
Very good. We got one more question.
I
This one is from, okay. So I've mispronounced this name over and over.
Is it Les?
It's
Lay?
Yes. And Vincent kindly sent me a video that taught me how to pronounce it, and I'm still going to mess it up.
Vincent.
Vincent is his name.
That is your name from now on.
So it's Les Acadiens.
Les Acadiens.
Yes. So I think I'm close, and hope you let me know. Okay. Hi, I've started practicing my second minor pentatonic shape. It's coming along. Not ready for big bending yet. Someday, hopefully. So no question there, but just commenting on.
If you don't be afraid of it. Like if you start out, just to start with a half step bend. So if you have an A minor pentatonic. This note right there, that is a really easy note. It's just you can bend up to the flat 5. It's the 4, bend up to the flat 5, right? So think about that. Put your thumb over the neck, put all the fingers behind that finger, and then just push up a little. And when I'm doing that, I'm kind of rotating my fingers right here.
Yeah.
It's not just like this, right?
Yeah.
It's more of a rotation.
And what you're doing when you do that is you're technically playing the blues scale.
Yeah.
Even if you don't bend the whole step, oh yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, because that note there is good, and the note above it is good, and the note right, like all the notes that you can possibly be bending to all work. So you're kind of, it's a safe zone.
Another one. Right there.
Yeah.
1/2 step. And just so you can experiment with vibrato too. That's still bending.
Yeah.
Cool.
Yeah, very nice. Okay, well that's it for questions. Is there anything else bending vibrato related you kind of wanted to cover today, Nate?
I think I've worn myself out.
You've worn, my hands are sore, and this isn't even that much bending.
It's not that bad yet. It's just like, oh, I could tell I haven't been playing this style of guitar in a while.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, exactly. Okay, well we're going to play out on another blues because it only seems appropriate. Is that right?
Yep.
Okay, and this is the jam track that we do have available for download as well.
Oh, do we?
Yes, we
Okay.
do. So if you guys want to download that.
If members area, it's Chicago Dog. If you want to go through that.
Yes,
with this.
exactly. Guys, thank you for coming out. See you guys next
You
time.
go ahead and start it, Andrew.
Sounds good.